I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 2nd of May and we are going to cover three very important topics which are in news. The International Workers' Day. It is celebrated on 1st of May every year, also known as the International Labor's Day. Well, it all started from 1886 in Chicago, where a few workers were protesting for their rights, for their working conditions. And there was a clash between the policemen and these workers in which both the parties, had some casualties. From then onwards, America started celebrating Workers' Day on the first Monday of every September. But it was in 1889 when the Second International, means it was an organization for the socialist parties all across the world, declared that 1st of May will be celebrated as the Workers' Day, and since then it has been celebrated on this day. In India, from 1923 onwards, 1st of May is celebrated as the Workers' Day. Next is cocoa industry has been impacted a lot. Cocoa industry is very much responsible for producing chocolates. Cocoa is also used in medicinal usages as well as cosmetics, biscuits and all, wherever chocolate is used. But this industry has been impacted due to El Nino, climate change, and the dropping farmers' income. El Nino has brought excess rains in Western Africa, which has spread a disease in the cocoa seed. Climate change is responsible for erratic rainfall, which again has caused a problem, and low farmer incomes have not enabled them to invest in the agricultural inputs required for the cocoa industry, leading to less production. The rate of cocoa is $12,000 per kg this year, which is 4 times more than the previous year cost. So in one single year, fourfold increase has been there. Next is the Street Vendors Act. This act was passed in the year 2014, which aimed to empower one of the very crucial, I would say, section of the population, that is the street vendors in the urban areas. Street vendors are a very intrinsic part of the economy because they are responsible for supplying goods at a relatively cheaper price. This act aimed at empowering them, but actually they are not being empowered. There are societal concerns, there are governance concerns, and there are obviously implementation concerns of this particular law. Their harassment is continued. So we will look into the detailed analysis of this act, and we will see how things have been performing. International Workers' Day. Now May 1 is observed as May Day, also referred to as International Workers' Day or Labor Day in different countries across the world. Now, obviously, this day is celebrated to remember or to commemorate the contributions of the workers in the economic development of the world. And why it started getting celebrated? Because, there's a place in Chicago that is the Haymarket Affair. Now, it is observed as an ancient Northern Hemisphere spring festival. Initially, May 1 became associated with the labor movement in the late 19th century. What happened? In Chicago's Haymarket Affair, May 4, 1886, the day was, and there were some labor protesters or labor protests going on. Why they were protesting? They were protesting for their better working conditions, 8-hour workday, paid leaves, other social security benefits, and all these kinds of, were the conditions which they kept across. This actually was not new because labor exploitation became rampant during the Industrial Revolution, which started in the mid 18th century, around 1750, 1760. And now it was more than 100 years down the line that the workers had come on the forefront and were protesting for their, I would say, rights. Now, US formally recognized Labor Day as federal holiday in 1894, and it continues to be celebrated every year on the first Monday of September. This was being celebrated in the USA. Soon Canada also followed suit. However, it took another 22 years and countless protests for America to recognize 8-hour workdays. 8-hour workday was not given right then. to the laborers. It was 22 years after 1896 when, 1886 when this was given to them. Now, May 4th was that Haymarket affair protest. First Monday of every September is being celebrated as the Labor Day. Where is May 1 into picture? Actually, in 1889, the Second International met, an organization of socialist and labor parties, and announced that May 1 would be marked as International Workers' Day from then on. 5 years later, the International Socialist Congress in Amsterdam called on all Socialist Democratic Party organizations and trade unions of all countries to demonstrate energetically on the 1st May for the legal establishment of 8-hour day for the class demands of the proletariat. Proletariat means the workers. And, you know, made it mandatory upon the proletarian organizations of all countries to stop work on 1st of May. That is why in many of the organization 1st of May is still considered as an off day. So this was the story of 1st of May. America did not start celebrating on 1st of May since 1889. America though was celebrating on 1st Monday of September. And afterwards in the 20th century, America also started adopting this because it was standardized as the Labor Day for the entire world, because labor is found in the entire world. Now, Labor Day in India. In India, basically, for the very first time in 1923, May 1st was celebrated as Labor Day. The person responsible for this celebration was Comrade Singaravelar, Singaravelu Chettiar. He was held at the celebrations, and Labour Kisan Party of Hindustan was initiated in two meetings, one at Triplicane Beach and second at beach opposite to the Madras High Court. The Comrade, known for being one of the leaders of the self-respect movement also in South India, was leading this movement and vouching for the labor rights over here. Next piece of news is cocoa industry impacted. Now, cocoa is the basic ingredient of chocolates. Chocolates are also used in various bakery items like biscuits and all, ice creams and all, cakes and all. So that chocolate is manufactured by cocoa, and cocoa industry is struggling. Why? Because the cocoa productivity has gone down. Productivity going down has raised the prices of cocoa. The most important part over here is that why productivity has gone down. There are three major factors. First is El Nino, which has brought excessive rains. Excessive rains have caused a disease in the cocoa plant. Second is climate change. Climate change actually is responsible for erratic pattern of rainfall. Sometimes too much rainfall, sometimes less, no rainfall. This is also causing disease in the cocoa plant. And the third is the low farmers' income over there. Now, according to a survey, the cocoa farmers on an average earn $1.25 a day, which is way too less than the World Bank's benchmark. I would say $2.15 a day to define the poverty line. Now, since the farmers are earning less, they will be able to invest less, and when they are investing less, productivity definitely will be less. The prices will be high. Now, the chocolates are high in demand. The chocolate companies like Lindt or Hershey's, Mondelez and all, these are high profitable companies. Actually, these companies are not passing on the profit to the farmers. They are of this viewpoint that they do not want to increase the prices of the chocolate. They are not passing on this, they are not increasing the prices, and hence the farmers are suffering over there. Because if they increase the prices, their market share might be impacted. Their profits might be impacted. So this is the entire, I would say, topic in the nutshell, which I just told you. The price of cocoa beans, the most important raw material in chocolates, has skyrocketed, hitting $12,000 a ton, around 4 times last year's price. Means in a single year, price increases this much. The cocoa processors who turn the beans into butter and liquor that are then converted to chocolate by companies have thus reduced production because they cannot afford the beans. Now, this is the scenario. Now, in the coming times, you may see less supply of chocolates, or if these chocolate manufacturers decide to increase the price, so increased price of chocolates. Factors responsible for the price rise: El Nino, which is causing excess rainfall; climate change, erratic nature of rainfall. Both of these are causing the bean disease. And last is low income of cocoa farmers. Now, what is the impact of El Nino? The impact of El Nino, basically, the immediate reason is basically El Nino only, and El Nino is a weather phenomenon in which low pressure zones are created on the western coast of South America. These low pressure zones over there attract the monsoonal winds, leading to heavy rainfall over there in South America, less rainfall in the Indian subcontinent, increased rainfall in the western part of Africa also. And in the western part of Africa, we have two countries, that is Ghana and Ivory Coast, which are the major producers of cocoa. Cocoa does not require too much of rainfall or excess rainfall. If it is there, then it will be a problem for the crop. Now, due to development of El Nino, a weather pattern which refers to an abnormal warming of surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific Ocean, West Africa experienced heavier than usual rainfall. This created an ideal ground for the spread of black pod disease. Now, this is that disease which causes cocoa pods, the case that holds the plant seeds, to rot on the branches of the cocoa trees. The consequences is drop in the crop yield. Drop in the crop yield obviously will be leading to increase in prices. The shortfall in productivity is equal to rising cost. Now, International Cocoa Organization has forecasted a global shortage of 374,000 tons for 2023-24. And last year also there was shortage. Last year, let's see what was the shortage. 74,000 tons was the shortage. And this year, 374,000 tons is going to be the shortage. 3 lakh tons more the shortage will be there as compared to last year. And obviously, this will be leading to rising prices of the cocoa, which can be seen in this graph. The bittersweet climb, the rising cost of cocoa, is basically what people are predicting, and that is quite commonsensical prediction. Now, what is the impact of climate change? We've seen the impact of El Nino till now. We'll see the impact of climate change. Now, with the rising temperatures, rainfall in the region has become erratic. Means at times it is too much. In short spells, very heavy rain is there. At times there are long spells of no rain. These are the impacts of climate change. We've already seen that. And now these impacts of climate change have started impacting the cocoa industry. Now, this cocoa trees are moisture sensitive, as we already saw. The cocoa pod disease happens. Heat waves are also there, droughts are also there, heavy rainfall is also there due to climate change, and these trees become more vulnerable due to these events, thereby causing lack of productivity. Now, low income of cocoa farmers, how this is impacting. We need to understand one more thing, that these big chocolate companies, they are not passing on the profits to the farmers. That is why the income is low. Now, the underlying issue that big chocolate companies do not pay enough to the cocoa farmers in West Africa. These farmers earn on an average as little as $1.25 a day. And $2.15 per day is that line which has been set by United Nations. World Bank is a specialized agency of United Nations only. That anyone who is earning below $2.15 a day is considered to be absolute poor. So these cocoa farmers who are earning $1.25 a day are absolute poor according to their income. 90% of farmers in Ghana cannot afford enough food or other basic necessities. This is according to a report by Oxfam. Other basic necessities like clothing, housing, medical care, etc. etc. The net incomes of the surveyed farmers have fallen on average by 16% since 2020. 9 out of 10 farmers which have been surveyed said that they are worse off since the pandemic. Whatever impact the pandemic had on them had. But these natural factors like El Nino, climate change, they are having a worse impact, and this impact is going to be a long impact because these are the phenomena which either are here to stay or they frequently come and go. Like El Nino will come and go every 3-4 years. Climate change is here to stay. So we need to do something. Farmers are not able to invest in land to increase yield or build resilience. Planting new crops or taking care of the plants has also become unaffordable. So consequently, slave and child labor are rampant in cocoa farms. Farmers are selling off their land to illegal gold miners. All this is happening over there in West Africa, where the cocoa production, I would say, countries are there. Now, why big chocolate companies are not passing on the profit to the farmers? This is also to be known. Actually, if I talk about the big chocolate companies, Lindt, Mondelez, Nestle, their collective profit last year was $4 billion. The other big company, Hershey's Confectionery, I'm sure that you might have heard about these names. Hershey's profits were $2 billion alone last year. And these are good, substantial profits. But unfortunately, these profits are not being passed on to the cocoa farmers who are struggling. It is the less income of the cocoa farmers, which is one of the most important factors, which is leading to less productivity. Now, why these companies are not passing on the profit? Now, there's one person known as Dr. Michael Odigi, a researcher of cocoa farming conditions in West Africa at University College London. He told The Guardian that a historic focus of these chocolate companies is on keeping the consumer prices low had contributed to long-term exploitation. For the consumer, the prices are not being raised because if raised, then the products will be less competitive and they want to stay in the competition. Whom they are exploiting? They are exploiting the farmers. There's also a saying that people are consuming chocolate which have been subsidized by the poor farmers and children of Africa. They are taking the profits. People who are consuming chocolates are enjoying. Prices are not rising. But the people from where the raw material is coming, they are suffering. So that needs to be taken care of. And the last piece of news is the Street Vendors Act. A decade has been passed when this particular law was there, passed 1st of May 2014. And I would say that this particular law has had mixed results. In some states, it has performed well. In some states, it has not performed well. There are multiple reasons for it not performing well, despite being a progressive legislation. Before going into that, let us first understand the significance of street vendors. They are estimated to be around 2.5% of any city's population. Local vegetable sellers, food vendors are essential providers of daily services. Vending offers many migrants and the urban poor a source of modest yet consistent income. Vendors also make city life affordable for others. Means there are urban poor people or lower middle class. Their life is, they cannot go to the malls and buy the products. They rely on the street vendors. Then, street vendors are also integral to Indian culture. You cannot imagine Mumbai without a vada pav wala or Delhi without a chole bhature wala or a chole kulche wala. You cannot. So they are promoting culture also. Now the provisions of this act. It aimed to protect and regulate street vending in cities. State level rules and schemes had to be formulated. Means the central government made that law, but it delegated it to the states. Ki bhaiya, you make the rules, you implement the scheme. So the state had to make rules and all, and execution had to be done by urban local bodies. So federal characteristics were there in this particular law. The Act clearly delineates the roles and responsibilities of both vendors and various levels of government. What should be the role of the vendors? What should be the role of the governments? It recognizes the positive urban role of vendors and the need for livelihood protection. What is the need for livelihood protection of the vendors? It commits to accommodating all existing vendors in vending zones and issuing vending certificates to them. This was very important because these vendors were very much prone to hafta vasuli by the municipality or the police, which led to a lot of corruption, harassment. A few weeks ago or last month, I think we saw a video getting viral of a lady who was selling vada pav in Delhi. Her claim was that she was being harassed by the authorities. But yes, there is a clause in this particular law that all the existing vendors have to be registered and they will be selling in vending zones. Vending zones will be identified, and in those zones only they will be doing their economic activity. People will come in those zones, eat or consume or whatever they are selling, they can have that. The Act establishes a participatory governance structure. Participatory governance means The street vendors themselves will participate in governance through town vending committees and mandates that street vendor representatives must contribute 40% of the TVC members. Out of this 40%, 33% should be females, women street vendors. So this was participatory governance. These committees are tasked with ensuring the inclusion of all existing vendors in vending zones. This was tasked. This committee's responsibility was कि सबको लेकर आओ. Bring all the street vendors, collect in one place. That place will be called as a vending zone and do your activities there. No one will come for hafta vasuli. Cleanliness and all will be maintained in that region. Municipality will be responsible for that. Additionally, the Act outlines mechanisms for addressing grievances and disputes also. A grievance redressal committee chaired by a civil judge or judicial magistrate had to be formed according to the law. But there are multiple challenges which this law is facing. First is challenge at the administrative level. There has been a noticeable increase in harassment and evictions of street vendors, as we saw that Bada Pav wali. This is often due to an outdated bureaucratic mindset. There is also pervasive lack of awareness and sensitization about the act among the street vendors. But see, it all depended on the state governments. The central government has made that law. The state governments were responsible for making the rules and regulations with respect to the law. If the state governments have not made the rules and regulations, that law will not be implemented in that state. Street vendors were one of the most impacted communities during the COVID-19. And for these people, Prime Minister Swanidhi Yojana was launched in which collateral-free loans were given to them. But this PM Swanidhi Yojana was only applicable in those states which had implemented the rules of this act. Around 6 or 7 states in India have not implemented the rules of this act, and so in those states this law is not there. This law is not there, so these benefits are not there. TVCs in the remaining states where laws are there, rules have been made, the act has not been implemented diligently. The TVCs often remain under the control of local city authorities. The representation of women vendors in TVCs is mostly tokenistic, means it is just for the namesake. Challenges at governance level. What are the challenges at governance level? Now, existing urban governance mechanisms are often weak. Act does not integrate well with the framework established by the 74th Amendment Act. Urban local bodies lack sufficient powers and capacities. Now, schemes like Smart Cities Mission, laden with resources and pushed through policy priorities, they tend to overshadow such kind of, I would say, vending zones and all. So these are challenges at the governance level. Challenges at the societal level. There is a quest for creating a world-class city, and there is a perception that world-class city cannot be created if the street vendors will be there. The street vendors have to be excluded. That is why the notion of world-class city tends to be exclusionary. It marginalizes and stigmatizes street vendors as obstacles. So that societal level, I would say, challenge has to go away. We need to understand that, street vending is very important, especially for those poor people who need products from these street vendors. Better is that vending zones should be created. Anyone can go there, buy the products, so that these street vendors also are able to earn a livelihood, and the poor people are also able to get products at cheap prices. Now, the topics are over and we come to the MCQs. Consider the following statements and mark the correct one. International Labour Day was celebrated for the first time in 1886. International Labour Day was celebrated for the first time in India in 1923. Now, very carefully answer this question. It might seem easy, but it is not. Which of the following can possibly be the uses of cocoa beans? Very carefully look at the options. Chocolates, biscuits, coffee, cosmetics, healthcare. Where can they be used? Which of the following can be the impacts of El Nino? Increased rainfall in Western Africa, reduced rainfall in Indian subcontinent, increased rainfall in South America. Very simple it is. I hope to get the correct answer, at least for this one. Which of the following countries is the highest producer of cocoa in the world? I have not told you this, but yes, you have to, apply common sense and you have to see which can be the highest producer of cocoa in the world. And the last is, which of the following are provisions of the Street Vendors Act? Formation of town vending committee comprising 40% members as street vendors. Out of the total membership of TVC, 50% should be women. Which of these are correct? So, With this, we've come to an end of today's session. I will be meeting you tomorrow now with more such news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, and most importantly, keep revising. Namaste. Jai.